Mornings across America start with yogurt cups labeled as healthy, but inside, Yoplait packs 28 grams of sugar, more than a Snickers bar, while Dannon fruit on the bottom out-sugars a Krispy Kreme donut. Parents think they are giving their kids a nutritious breakfast, yet most have no idea that U.S. yogurt often contains more sugar than ice cream. Why do companies drown our healthy yogurts in sugar while offering much healthier versions overseas? The answer is hidden in the fine print, and the impact might shock you. On the side of every yogurt cup in the dairy aisle, a small black and white panel holds the real story. Since 2020, the FDA has required all major yogurt brands to list both total sugars and directly beneath includes XG added sugars. Most shoppers glance past it, distracted by bright fruit images and promises of probiotics. But the difference between these two lines is critical. Total sugar counts everything: natural lactose from milk and any sugar added by the manufacturer. Added sugars, though, are what transform a simple dairy snack into a hidden dessert. In a plain yogurt, almost all the sugar comes from milk itself, about 5 grams per serving. In a flavored cup, that number jumps, often by 3 or 4 times, because of added sugar or syrup. The FDA's rule, finalized in 2016 and enforced for large companies starting January 2020, was meant to give families a fighting chance to see how much sugar is put in during processing. Yet, the added sugars line is easy to miss, tucked beneath total sugars in small print, while the front of the package still shouts low fat, or good source of calcium. Dr. Robert Lustig, a pediatric endocrinologist and sugar researcher, points out that the real risk comes from these added sugars, especially for children, whose daily limit is just 25 grams. A single fruit-flavored yogurt can use up nearly all of that allowance before breakfast is over. Unlike the European Union, which restricts health claims on high-sugar foods, the U.S. allows brands to market even the sweetest yogurts as healthy. The label tells the truth, but only if you know exactly where to look. Yoplait Original sits on supermarket shelves promising a wholesome start to the day, but a closer look at the ingredient list tells a different story. The first ingredient is cultured low-fat milk. The second is sugar, not just a pinch, enough to rival any dessert. High fructose corn syrup also appears in many flavors, adding even more sweetness at a fraction of the cost of real fruit. Modified cornstarch comes next, not for nutrition, but to thicken and stabilize the yogurt, giving it that creamy texture without the need for extra milk or long fermentation. Kosher gelatin is included to help mimic the mouthfeel of traditional, full-fat yogurt, even though classic recipes rely on milk and cultures alone. Color additives like Red 40 are used in some fruit flavors, making strawberry and cherry varieties pop with an intensity that doesn't come from nature. Red 40 is permitted in the United States, but in the European Union, products containing certain synthetic dyes must carry a warning label about potential effects on children's attention and behavior. Many European yogurt makers avoid these additives entirely, relying instead on fruit and vegetable juices for color. Dr. Alison Miller, a food scientist specializing in dairy processing, points out that these industrial tweaks aren't about making yogurt healthier, they're about making it cheaper, sweeter, and more visually appealing. In the US, there's no restriction on how much sugar or how many additives can go into a product labeled as yogurt. The result is a cup that looks and tastes like dessert but is marketed as health food, and all thanks to a recipe engineered around cost and shelf appeal rather than nutrition. This formula, which includes milk, sugar, corn syrup, starch, gelatin, and artificial color, has become the blueprint for American-style yogurt, setting the stage for a wave of similar products across the dairy aisle. Dannon's fruit on the bottom. Yogurt promises a burst of real fruit, but the ingredient list tells a different story. In the US, what settles at the bottom of the cup is less a layer of fresh strawberries and more a carefully engineered syrup. The so-called fruit base is a blend of strawberries, water, sugar, and modified cornstarch, thickened further with carrageenan, a seaweed-derived stabilizer that keeps everything suspended and glossy. Carrageenan isn't there for nutrition. It's used to create a uniform, spoonable texture and to prevent separation during shipping and shelf life. This allows manufacturers to use less actual fruit and more sugar syrup, which is far cheaper and easier to standardize than sourcing and processing real fruit pieces. An industry insider, who spent years developing dairy products for major U.S. brands, describes how cost pressures drive these choices. Real fruit is expensive, especially when purchased out of season or at large scale. Sugar, cornstarch, and stabilizers offer a reliable, low-cost alternative that delivers a consistent taste and texture, one that is engineered to be sweet, thick, and shelf-stable. The result is a product that tastes like dessert and costs less to produce than true fruit yogurt. The label on Dannon's strawberry cup lists sugar just after milk, with the fruit component broken out as a blend of strawberries, water, sugar, and modified cornstarch. Carrageenan appears further down, signaling the reliance on additives to mimic the look and feel of a premium product. In France, Danone's fruit yogurts are made with real fruit pieces and contain fewer stabilizers, reflecting both different regulations and consumer expectations. In the U.S., the syrup illusion has become standard practice, not just at Dannon, but across most mainstream yogurt brands. This reliance on additives and engineered sweetness is now the industry's default recipe, shaping what Americans find in every dairy aisle. Chobani Flip lines up in the dairy aisle with a promise of Greek authenticity and playful flavors. The package splits cleanly in two: thick, strained yogurt on one side, a compartment of candy mix-ins on the other. Almond Coco Loco, cookie dough, s'mores, each one pushes the boundary of what counts as breakfast. Flip the toppings in, stir, and what was once a 4-gram sugar base jumps to 19 or 20 grams per cup. That's 5 times the sugar of plain Chobani Greek delivered in a single serving labeled as a snack. Dr. Maya Patel, a pediatric endocrinologist, keeps a collection of yogurt labels in her office. She points to the numbers. A single Chobani Flip, just 5.3 ounces, delivers nearly a child's entire recommended daily limit for added sugar before lunch. The American Heart Association sets that cap at 25 grams for children. One Flip leaves only a few grams for everything else a child eats all day. The illusion is powerful. Greek yogurt is known for high protein and low sugar, but the Flip line flips that script. The base is strained and tangy, but the add-ins, chocolate, coconut, cookie pieces, turn it into a dessert. The nutrition panel confirms it: 19 grams total sugar, almost all of it added. The ingredient list reveals cane sugar, chocolate chips, sweetened coconut, and sometimes even caramel. The only thing separating this product from a candy bar is the word yogurt and a few grams of protein. Plain Chobani Greek, by contrast, lists only milk and live cultures. Its sugar comes entirely from lactose, the natural milk sugar. No added syrups, no candy, no dyes. The difference is not just in taste, but in health impact. Dr. Patel sees the results in her clinic. Children with diets built around sweetened yogurts develop a taste for extreme sweetness early, making it harder to accept real fruit or plain dairy later. The Greek yogurt halo gives parents the impression of health, but the numbers on the label tell a different story. Premium branding and higher price do not guarantee a healthy choice. Sometimes they just buy a more expensive dessert in disguise. Activia's green packaging promises digestive relief and a healthy start, but the ingredient list tells a more complicated story. Each 4-ounce cup of Activia Peach contains 19 grams of sugar, more than 4 teaspoons, delivered alongside its signature probiotic, Bifidobacterium animalis DN 173010. The same cup lists cane sugar and, in some flavors, added fructose high in the ingredient list, right after milk. For years, some U.S. Activia yogurts even included high fructose corn syrup, a sweetener rarely found in European versions. While the probiotic strain itself has been shown in clinical studies to help with constipation and improve bowel regularity, there is no evidence suggesting that these bacteria require nearly 20 grams of sugar to work. Dr. Robert Lustig, a pediatric neuroendocrinologist at UCSF and a leading critic of added sugar in children's diets, points out that most Americans buy Activia for its gut health claims, not realizing how much sugar they're getting in the process. He explains that a high-sugar environment in the GUT can feed harmful bacteria as much as beneficial ones, undermining the very balance consumers hope to restore. Excess sugar, especially from added sources like cane sugar or fructose, has been linked in research to changes in the gut microbiome that favor inflammation and metabolic dysfunction. European Activia, sold in France and the UK, typically contains just 8 to 10 grams of sugar per serving, often sweetened with fruit puree or a small amount of cane sugar. The difference, Dr. Lustig notes, isn't about taste preference or probiotic efficacy. It's about regulation and marketing. In the US, companies can promote yogurt's probiotic benefits with little regard for sugar content, so long as the label discloses it. In Europe, stricter rules on health claims and child-targeted advertising push manufacturers to keep added sugars lower and formulations cleaner. The paradox is clear. The very product sold to support digestive health in America is loaded with enough sugar to challenge that goal. For families hoping to improve gut health, the promise of probiotics comes bundled with a dessert-level sugar hit, delivered by a brand that positions itself as medicine in the dairy aisle. Light and Fit Greek Zero Sugar lines the dairy aisle with a promise that seems almost magical. 0 grams of sugar, all the flavor, and the same creamy texture. The secret isn't in the milk or the fruit, it's in the chemistry. Instead of cane sugar or corn syrup, Dannon's Light and Fit swaps in sucralose and acesulfame potassium, 2 synthetic sweeteners hundreds of times sweeter than sugar itself. The label boasts 0 grams of sugar, but the ingredient list tells a different story. Sucralose, known commercially as Splenda, is a chlorinated sugar molecule. It tricks the tongue just like real sugar, but passes through the body mostly undigested. Acesulfame potassium, or ACK, is another lab-made sweetener, often paired with sucralose to round out the aftertaste. Both are approved by the FDA, but their safety profile is far from settled science. Karen O'Leary, a registered dietitian with a background in microbiome research, points to recent studies that raise new questions. In 2022, a peer-reviewed trial found that healthy adults consuming sucralose daily for 2 weeks showed measurable changes in their gut bacteria. Some species dropped, others surged. The same study tracked blood glucose response and found altered insulin sensitivity in a subset of participants. While these effects were subtle, they suggest that non-nutritive sweeteners aren't as invisible to the body as once believed. Other research links artificial sweeteners to increased cravings for sweet foods and possible impacts on metabolic health, though findings remain mixed and controversial. On U.S. shelves, Light and Fit, Greek Zero Sugar sits beside its higher sugar cousins, marketed as the guilt-free answer to dessert-level yogurt. In Europe, regulations require products with artificial sweeteners to carry a warning label that says, "contains sweeteners." Some countries restrict or ban certain sweeteners in foods aimed at children, citing uncertainty about long-term health effects. In the U.S., no such warnings are required. The result is a quiet trade-off: less sugar on the label but more chemicals in the cup. For parents and shoppers, the choice becomes a gamble between the well-documented risks of excess sugar and the unknowns of synthetic substitutes. The industry's pivot to artificial sweeteners reveals just how far manufacturers will go to keep American yogurt sweet, regardless of what's left behind in the fine print. Great value yogurt sits near the bottom of the price ladder at Walmart, often less than $2 for a 6-ounce cup. The ingredient list spells out how that price is possible. After cultured milk, the second ingredient is high-fructose corn syrup, a sweetener that costs a fraction of real fruit or cane sugar. Sugar follows soon after, along with modified cornstarch, artificial flavors, and color additives like Red 40 and Blue 1. These choices aren't about taste or nutrition. They're about keeping production costs low enough to meet the demands of budget shoppers. Real strawberries or blueberries are expensive, especially at scale, so great value relies on flavored syrup and stabilizers to mimic fruit and texture. The sugar content lands around 26 grams per serving, nearly matching the highest sugar national brands. For families on tight grocery budgets, these store-brand cups offer a familiar taste at a lower price, but the trade-off is clear: more sugar, more additives, and less actual yogurt. In Europe, even the lowest-priced store brands are required to meet tighter limits on sugar and additives. In the US, affordability often comes at the expense of health, as supermarket economics drive a race to the sweetest, cheapest formula. American yogurt owes its sweetness to a regulatory gap that does not exist across the Atlantic. The FDA sets no legal upper limit for sugar in yogurt. Brands are free to add as much as they want and still fill the front of the package with health claims, cartoon fruit, and probiotic promises. There's no restriction on using words like healthy, even when a single cup contains more sugar than a candy bar. In the European Union, the rules are different. Yogurts with high sugar cannot be advertised to children or promoted as healthy breakfast foods. Regulation EC Number 1, 924/2006 blocks health claims for foods that exceed certain sugar thresholds, and several countries use front-of-pack scoring systems that flag sweetened yogurts with a warning color. The UK's sugar levy on soft drinks, while not applied to yogurt, pushed major companies to cut sugar in related products to avoid financial penalties. In France, Nutri-Score ratings and mandatory health messages on food ads have driven reformulation, nudging brands toward lower sugar recipes. Marion Nestle, a leading food policy scholar, points out that the absence of a U.S. sugar cap gives manufacturers total freedom. The same multinationals that sell 10-gram yogurts in Paris can sell 26-gram versions in Texas, simply because American law lets them. The result is a dairy aisle shaped not by nutrition, but by what companies can get away with on the label. Today, American yogurt shelves overflow with products sweeter than ice cream, shaped by marketing and weak regulation, not nutrition. As childhood diabetes and obesity rates keep rising, the gap between what's sold and what's safe grows wider. The real difference isn't in the recipe, it's in what companies think they can get away with. What we accept now shapes the health of a generation. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.